Bless the Lord, O my soul, blessed art thou, Lord.
I received a telephone call about a half hour ago from a young man from a different state who was a young man in college, very depressed. His job he had just quit was not working out. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he was feeling like there was no hope. And one of the things that I shared with him is that that's very typical of young people, especially young men in this day and age. When I was in college, it was an average of 70% of colleges and universities had young men. But today it's switched, so it's only 40%. And the reason that I'm hearing, things I've read about it, this phenomena, is that these are young men who are feeling like they're not welcome in the college or the university. A lot of it because they're white. So they're told that they have white privilege, and then they feel like they don't have any privileges at all. They feel like they're a failure, that that never will amount to anything. The truth is that that's something that most young people experience, both young men and women, self-doubt. I remember when I was in high school, there was a fellow that he was probably the most handsome boy in high school. He was an athlete. He was a straight A student. And then one day, when I was starting my job in this hardware store at the beginning of the summer, I ran into his older brother, and I asked how his brother was doing, and he said, "Oh, you haven't heard. He committed suicide." And he basically left a note to his family sharing that he had no hope, that he was a failure. And he had no hope for the future. He had felt completely and totally isolated and defeated. And I remember how shocked I was, because he was the kid that every other guy in high school looked upon with envy. Most of us, when we're young, experience things like that. Like we feel hopeless. We feel like there's no hope for our future. We're never going to amount to anything. Some of us even feel like nobody really likes us. This young man told his family in his note that the only reason why anybody liked him was because he was good looking and smart. He dismissed everything else. He said that if people really knew who he was, they wouldn't like him at all. When I was teaching college, I remember a young man came in who was having the same kind of depression. He was one of the best on the football team, and he was a straight A student, and he was good looking. And yet he is sitting there in front of me, pouring out his heart, feeling defeated, totally defeated, like he had nothing to offer and he was going to amount to nothing. The truth of it is that all of us go through times like this. Most of us keep it secret. We don't tell anyone. As a therapist, I used to hear it all the time. And as a priest, I hear it all the time. But there's hope. And the hope that we have as Orthodox Christians must be in our focus on Jesus Christ and immersing ourselves in the life of the Church. Not only attending the Divine Liturgy on Sunday, but going to as many other services during the week as we can, and having a strong emphasis on our own prayer life, our prayer rule at home, either with our family or by ourselves. The morning prayers and the evening prayers to set us straight, and reading the epistle and gospel readings according to the church calendar. And even reading the lives of saints, maybe a saint that is your patron saint, or a saint that you somehow identify with his life to give you encouragement and strength to deal with what you're facing. But most important of all, the key to all of this is to remember that you're not alone in feeling defeated and worthless, because most of us go through periods like that. When I was in my early 20s, I remember feeling like that, like I had no hope. There was no hope. I'll never amount to anything. But the Lord of mercies is with us, even when we think he's not. The Lord speaks to us in silence, that silence of the inner life. And when we think God either doesn't exist or was aware, not even aware of who we are, we feel he's absent. He's closer to us than our own breath. So for all of you young people who feel defeated, and this actually can say this to anyone, if you feel defeated, there's a number of things that you should remember. The last number of years with the COVID closures and young people being forced either to stay away from school or attend classes via Zoom, or when you're with people being masked, that was a very difficult time, especially for young people. Children especially suffered because the expressions that they show on their faces to their friends and that they receive back from their friends, that joyous, happy smile, is not something that can be communicated only by eye contact. It's something that all of us experience by seeing the complete full face. So be encouraged. Don't give up. Don't surrender to defeat and depression. And remember that in the Orthodox Church, we view suffering as salvific. And someday you will take the suffering that you have now in your life and the loneliness that you have, and you will be a light to others. God bless your journey.
Both now and ever and unto the ages of ages. Amen. Only begotten Son and